morning, everyone. Today, March 20th, we are ready to start the Committee on Commerce and Economic Development. We welcome to the hearing. I note that the hour has come. We now have a quorum. To my left, Councilmember Gilmore Richardson. To my right, Councilmember Young and Councilmember Jones. The quorum is present. The hearing is now called to order. This is a public hearing in the Committee of Commerce and Economic Development regarding bills numbers 240019 and 240087. Mr. Monaco, can you please read the title of the bills?
Bill number 240019, adopting an amendment to Section 5 of the Articles of Incorporation of the Philadelphia Authority for Industrial Development by increasing the authority's term of existence to a date 50 years from the date of approval of Articles of Amendment by the Secretary of the Commonwealth, under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Monaco.
Jody Harris. Or
Oh, no problem. For the record, before you start, Jody, President is Councilmember Gautier. Just state your name for the record and then proceed with your testimony.
Great. Jody Harris, President, PIDC.
Is that on?
Is this one?
Is that on? Speak.
Hello?
There you go.
Yes, Jody Harris, President, PIDC. Good morning, Chairperson Squilla, Vice Chairperson Jones, and members of the committee. My name is Jody Harris, and I am President of PIDC, the city's private public economic development corporation. I'm here today to provide testimony in support of Bill number 240019. This bill would amend the Articles of Incorporation of the Philadelphia Authority for Industrial Development, also known as PAID, by increasing its term of existence to a date 50 years from the date of approval. By way of background, PAID is a public authority incorporated by the City of Philadelphia and organized under the Commonwealth's Economic Development Finance Act to undertake three main activities. First, PAID is a vehicle through which PIDC manages properties and industrial sites on behalf of the city, including property acquisition, improvement, environmental remediation, and/or sale. Second, PAID also issues taxable and tax-exempt bonds on behalf of nonprofit organizations, qualified manufacturers, other exempt organizations, and the City of Philadelphia pursuant to IRS and Commonwealth regulations. And last, PAID serves as a conduit for city and other governmental contract and grant program funding for economic development projects throughout the city. In accordance with the Commonwealth's Economic Development Finance Law, economic development authorities can only exist for up to 50 years, and they are not permitted to enter into agreements with initial terms that extend beyond that. In order to accommodate requests for longer-term agreements, it is critical to our operations that PAID's existence be extended to the full 50 years. PAID was initially incorporated by City Council in 1967, and thus its original term was authorized in 1967 would have expired in 2017. We have previously come before City Council twice over the last few decades to extend PAID's term of existence. Our current term expires on September 19, 2061, providing less than 37 years of remaining term, which would be problematic for any transactions extending beyond this time. The proposed bill I'm here to testify in support of simply extends PAID's existence. This has previously been done with similar legislation, most recently in 2011 and 1991. In closing, extending PAID is important to Philadelphia's continued economic growth, and we thank you for your consideration of the legislation that does just that. I'd also like to take this opportunity to let all council members know that we very much look forward to meeting with you in the other council session tomorrow for a briefing on the various ways PIDC supports the city's broader economic development efforts, and we hope to see you there. Thank you for inviting PIDC to testify today. I'm now happy to answer any questions the committee may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? Councilmember Jones?
First of all, thank you for PIDC and PAID's contribution to the skyline and neighborhoods of the city of Philadelphia. I will note that PIDC is not my grandfather's PIDC. It is more diverse, it is more inner city, it is representative of the demographics of the city of Philadelphia to the degree that they can. This was evidenced during the pandemic when you, Commerce Department, and others stepped up to the plate to try to make sure that the economic character of the city of Philadelphia didn't go by the wayside of the pandemic. So thank you for that. I'm going to put you on the spot because we've met before. I had the opportunity to serve on your board. This 50-year extension, we can look back easily and see what you have meant to the city of Philadelphia. Give me, and I know you're going to do it tomorrow, give me a little bit of flavor for the record. How does PIDC play a role 50 years going forward?
Thank you for your question. Without having prepared an official answer to that question, because I think
I do that
there's
from
so
time
much
to time.
detail I could go into, I do believe that over the course of the next 50 years, PAID will continue to serve as a critical instrument for the city to move economic growth in terms of supporting large-scale projects, in terms of supporting projects that need to be in existence for up to 50 years, that will provide some longevity and also contribute to the planning of the city. PIDC has a number of roles in the city, and one of them is managing the operations of PAID. In addition to that, we also provide financial services to small businesses and developers across the city. We provide technical assistance to small businesses and developers across the city. And we also work very closely with Commerce to move the city's economic agenda. So I think those three prongs all tied together relate to the ability to extend PAID for another 50 years, because in order to continue to do what we do, we need to have these proactive measures to ensure that there are no issues that arise should the city want to undertake a long-scale development.
So that is indeed what I was hoping for. But I would encourage also for PIDC and its board to play a greater role in advising this council and also the mayor's administration. So what do I mean by that? In the past, administrations have tended to think smaller than I believe they should. It was big picture thinking to do the cap over I-95. That was major visionary kind of expansion of what exists to make what is necessary. We have situations in my district. I have I think 40-acre paper mill that was abandoned up in Manayunk and Roxborough. Advising us on how we can use that land better is what I'm hoping you'll provide us. You guys are deep thinkers and think in 10-year spurts where we might think in 4-year spurts. So that guidance we are seeking. Transportation on that paper mill, that kind of planning to say that to develop that plot would mean congestion in that neighborhood. Here's how you build around that, working with our partners in the county. Those are the kinds of things that we need, whether we should do a stadium on Market Street. Oh, we'd love to hear your opinion about those things guiding us. You will have your say, we will have our way, but we want to hear what you have to say. So that kind of advice is priceless. And we look forward to a partnership that allows us and you to feel free to come in these chambers or come in to our offices and say what you think. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much, Jody, for your testimony. Welcome back to the great city of Philadelphia.
Thank you.
I know you've been here and back quite some time, but we truly appreciate your work, and I actually enjoyed listening to you on a panel recently. I wanted to just quickly ask about PIDC's theory of change and the work that you all have done around strategic planning, and particularly your thoughts around the future of work. I know that you all work particularly with small businesses and helping them with technical assistance, which we've heard from our diverse chambers is necessary in order to help those businesses scale and grow. But if you could talk specifically about what you all found and what you are planning for your future of work for the upcoming years for PIDC.
Great. Thanks, Council Member. That's a really timely question. So our theory of change includes 3 lenses. It's racial equity, sustainability and resilience, and the future of work. We have embedded these 3 lenses in our lending practices in a number of ways. One is part through our technical assistance in terms of working with borrowers to make sure that we are being equitable in terms of how we distribute our funding, that we are contributing to projects that have a sustainability component in terms of ensuring that a community is sustainable. And then the future of work, also looking at job creation and the quality of those jobs. So your timing of your question is great because while we have set up our theory of change and we have these 3 lenses, we need to do a better job of measuring our progress. So we will be embarking in the next few months on an exercise to look at what are our key performance indicators and making sure that we have a baseline from which we can manage our growth in our process. And in looking at that, creating a loop where we go back and say, okay, we didn't hit our targets or we didn't make as much progress as we thought. Let's go back and recalibrate and see within those 3 lenses what else we need to do. So we have the 3 lenses, and I think we have a strong foundation. We just need to build the performance indicators on top of those to make sure that we're continually to do what we said we were going to do.
Well, that's great news because my mentor used to say you can't manage what you don't measure. And so we really need to understand, particularly from a small business perspective, how we can better help small businesses so that they can scale and grow with all the projects that we know are coming to the city, but particularly with our diverse small business owners. So I'm happy to hear that you all will work on additional ways to continue to measure the success of the output of the work happening at PIDC, and I look forward to continuing to work with you all. And the last thing that I would ask is if we could just get an up-to-date copy of your entire team, not only just your leadership team, but all the employees, the demographics of everyone working at PIDC and the board. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Young?
Good morning, Ms. Harris. How you doing today?
Good morning.
Just a quick question regarding, I guess, the effect. So this amendment to your articles, the original one expired in 2017. How has, or has there been any deficiencies in how you have been able to do your business from 2017 until now without this extension amendment? Can you describe to us what the difficulties have been?
Yeah, so Councilmember, this is a preventive measure. We haven't run into any roadblocks or hiccups without having the 50 years on the, with the authority. Right now, we have about 37. So we just want to make sure that if something would arise where there's a long-scale project that would take us to past 37 years, that we have this in place. So just more of a preventive measure to make sure we don't run into roadblocks, but it hasn't prohibited any development so far.
Great. That's an agency that's being proactive rather than reactive. I like
Exactly.
that in government.
Exactly.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, Jody, thank you so much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Is there anybody else to testify on bill number 240019? Seeing none, thank you so much. Mr. McManus, can you please call, since there's no further questions and the members of the committee, no other witnesses testify, let's move to bill number 240087.
Bill number 240087, amending Chapter 9-600 of the Philadelphia Code entitled special and other businesses by adding a new section regulating the operation of establishments providing tax preparation services and providing for remedies, all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you. Can you please call? Oh, I'm sorry. Before we start, can we recognize Councilmember Landau for comments? You come on. Hold on.
Just give her a spare. Mark, give her a spare. Give her a spare.
Okay, got a button. Thank you. Thank you so much. This is my bill that I introduced, and thank you so much for holding this hearing for everybody who came here today. I just wanted to say that this bill does simply two things. It mandates that commercial tax preparers must disclose their fees so consumers can decide whether or not to proceed with their tax filing. And it also mandates that the commercial tax preparers would provide consumers with notice that free services may be available for eligible, low-income, elderly, and/or disabled consumers. So that way, if consumers choose not to proceed with the commercial tax preparers, they'll be informed of the wonderful free services we have available here in Philadelphia. The folks who are testifying today will give more details, but I just wanted to give that context, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your foresight and introduction of the bill. Right now, we have Kathleen. Just state your name for the record and then proceed with your testimony.
Revenue Commissioner for the Department of Revenue.
Please proceed.
Good morning, Chair Squilla and members of Committee on Commerce and Economic Development. My name is Kathleen McColgan. I'm the Revenue Commissioner and Chief Collections Officer at the Department of Revenue, and I'm here today to testify in support of Bill Number 240087. Bill Number 240087 amends Chapter 9-600 of the Philadelphia Code and requires tax preparation services providers to do the following. 1, provide a document showing no-cost tax preparation services provided to the city, Commonwealth, federal government, registered nonprofit organizations, and legal aid services. The Department of Revenue will provide this document on a publicly available web page on the Department of Revenue's website. 2, receive a signed acknowledgement from the consumer that the consumer has received the document outlining the availability of no-cost tax preparation services. And 3, provide the taxpayer a detailed explanation of the cost of services. This bill provides consumer protections to vulnerable taxpayers from predatory practices that obscure the cost of tax services that can be obtained for free. The administration supports Bill Number 240087 to ensure taxpayers can file and pay their local, state, and federal taxes without incurring unnecessary additional costs to do so. The administration supports any efforts that connect taxpayers with no-cost tax preparation services and make it easier to file and pay taxes. While we have some operational concerns, we look forward to working with City Council to ensure Philadelphia taxpayers have awareness of no-cost tax preparation services and can make informed consumer decisions. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Councilmember Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you so much, Commissioner McColgan. Thank you very much for your testimony. I'm just seeing here that you're stating you have some operational concerns. Have you shared those concerns with the sponsor?
Yeah, I think the concerns are really just related to understanding how any amendments to the bill, the final language that's in it, if and when passed, and at that point we will work to implement the requirements of the bill.
Okay. I'm only asking because I know that when we did the information sheet for the Tangled Title legislation. We had worked with Records and CAO to develop the sheet, and we met with all the external stakeholders to ensure all the appropriate information was included in the sheet, and we sort of worked together. So you all will be able to help develop and work with the sponsor on the information sheet, make it available to the text preparers, and then lastly, and this was something that we always talked about in council, the education is so important. The education for the broader community. How do you all plan to educate the broader community about this sheet?
Okay. Yes, the administration is happy to work with council to implement this bill. In the Department of Revenue, we have an excellent communications team, so we will work to make sure that we have plain language in place to help folks understand, the resources that are available to them and put that on our website. We also do extensive outreach in communities, so we will be happy to provide that information in communities as well. And then I think there's other city agencies that we could potentially partner with to get that information out.
Okay, that's great. I just wanted to ensure that I had an understanding of sort of the consternation that was mentioned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilmember Gautier.
Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning, Council.
Thank you for your testimony. Can you talk to us about how many eligible residents are taking advantage of the city's free tax preparation services on an annual basis? And can you also talk about how that number compares to how many could take advantage of the service if they knew about it?
Thank you for the question. I don't have that information with me right now, but I'll be happy to look into it and get back to you.
Thank you. That'd be very helpful.
Thank you. One last question too then, I guess, is how will the administration be able to enforce the legislation?
I think that is, once we have the final language of the bill when passed, that's something that we'll need to talk through and work with council to understand how we can implement compliance. So I understand that this wouldn't be effective until the fall, so we have some time to do that.
All right, thank you very much. Oh, Councilmember Young, I'm sorry.
Thank you. So if this bill were to pass as is, are you able to work with, I guess, your staff and council to implement this as is if it were to pass today?
Yes, as I mentioned, we can go ahead and publicize the information that's required. I think what we need to just talk through and understand better is the compliance component.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank
Kathleen
you.
Cohen, thank you so much for your testimony, much appreciated. I'll now call the next panel. Christine Spidell, Dr. Nakia Owens, and Will Gonzalez, if you want to come up. Christine, if you want to just go first, just state your name for the record and then proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Christine Spidell. I'm an associate professor at the Villanova University Charles Widger School of Law, and I direct the Federal Tax Clinic. The Federal Tax Clinic provides free legal services to people in disputes with the IRS. We serve low-income taxpayers from throughout Eastern Pennsylvania through representation, education, to community groups, and advocacy. Many low-income people pay hundreds of dollars each year for tax preparation despite being eligible for free help. I see this locally in our clinic, but it's a national problem. In my testimony, I cited some federal research and indicating that perhaps 3% nationally of eligible taxpayers take advantage of these free services. Ensuring that people know about free tax preparation is especially important in communities where lots of lower income people live, like Philadelphia. And this is because tax refunds are the single largest source of economic support for low income children and low income families. Programs like the Child Tax Credit and the Earned Income Tax Credit are crucial anti-poverty programs, and unnecessary tax preparation costs drain funds from families that really need them. In particular, families earning roughly $15,000 to $40,000 a year are the main beneficiaries of these credits. These are families for whom every dollar counts. Yet they're routinely charged $200 to $300 or more for a simple tax return that could have been prepared for free at a volunteer tax site. The complexity of the Internal Revenue Code and the realities of poverty can push people to paid tax preparers who promise quick cash. The bill's requirement to disclose costs up front should help level the playing field between responsible tax preparation businesses that provide an important community service and fly-by-night tax season-only shops that open up seasonally to drain refunds from families in poverty. Low-income people are especially vulnerable to being overcharged by these fly-by-night tax preparation companies because they usually pay the tax preparer out of their refund. In egregious cases, the taxpayer is just told the amount of their refund and nothing else. In others, the junk fees are disguised through confusing schedules. But too many people don't know their options at tax time and don't understand what they're being charged. Preparer fees and related charges are siphoning off important anti-poverty credits that families need. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Dr. Nakia Owens.
Good morning, honorable members of Philadelphia City Council. Today I give testimony and advocate for Councilmember Rue Landau's Tax Preparation Transparency Bill and the free tax preparation services that campaign for working families for our city's residents. The service of free tax filing is not just a matter of convenience, but a critical lifeline for many, especially considering Philadelphia's poverty rate and the disproportionate impact on our Black and brown communities. Philadelphia's economic landscape presents significant challenges. The poverty rate stands at approximately 23% with stark racial disparities. The Black community, which comprises slightly over 40% of the city's population, faces the highest asset poverty rate at about 42% and liquid asset poverty rate of about 53%, along with a median household income of just over $39,000. These figures underscore the critical need for financial transparency and support mechanisms like Councilmember Rue Landau's bill and the Earned Income Tax Credit. Alarmingly, about 50,000 Philadelphians fail to claim the Earned Income Tax Credit annually, leaving over $100 million unclaimed every year. This oversight means that only 77% of eligible Philadelphians, which out of about 240,000 Philadelphians who are eligible, benefit from this crucial financial boost. The EITC is especially significant for families with parents, one child eligible for up to just over $4,200. Those with two children can receive up to $6,960, and those with 3 or more children could receive up to $7,830. These amounts can be transformative, providing essential financial relief even for parents who did not earn a lot of money throughout the year. It is imperative we encourage all eligible Philadelphians to file their taxes to claim the Earned Income Tax Credit, ensuring they do not leave these vital support unclaimed each year. The significance of $300 or $400 saved in tax preparation fees cannot be overstated. For many families, this sum represents a month's worth of groceries, utility bills, or emergency savings to prevent a financial crisis. We know that individuals will fall back in poverty and within a year, even if they rise out of it, over a $400 expense. Considering the potential of investing in a 529 college savings fund, these dollars, if invested in a 529 college fund over a 15-year period with an average return rate of 7%, this investment could actually pay for the entire cost of a child's post-secondary education. Furthermore, the necessity for transparency in tax preparation fees is critical. Families often find themselves blindsided by high service charges, exacerbating their financial strain. The practice of revealing fees only after services are rendered is just not fair. It is predatory, depriving families of the ability to make informed financial decisions. The gig economy, characterized by companies like Uber, Lyft, Instacart, DoorDash, presents unique tax challenges. Gig workers, a growing segment of our workforce, navigate complex tax situations without the assurance of transparent and affordable tax advice. Free tax services like those offered by Campaign for Working Families are necessary for these workers to meet their obligations without undue financial burden. Today, Campaign for Working Families is proud to highlight the personal story of one of its student interns who's here to provide a story of their tax filing at one of the paid preparers. We have Andy Tran.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Gonzalez. Councilmember Landau?
Yeah, Chairman, the Campaign for Working Families was calling up an intern of theirs who went out and did some secret shopping and wanted that person to testify next, but
Just state your name for the record. Do you want to testify?
Yes, my name's Andy Tran.
Please proceed.
So last year's been pretty busy. I got married in Vietnam, and sorry. So I got married in Vietnam. I came over, was working, was changing careers into accounting, did Uber and Lyft just to provide for my family, had a child in July, and I finally enrolled into community college, trying to better myself. But in the end, I was met with a ridiculous tax, a ridiculous invoice from Liberty Tax. So as I was going into the office of Liberty Tax and essentially giving out so much of my personal information and getting help, every single point was essentially met with charges, hundreds and hundreds of dollars, where each gig that I ran for, so it would be Uber and Lyft, would cost me about $300 just to file the tax forms for each one of them. And just for the federal return was another $300, for the state return was another $100. It amounted to almost $1,000 of charges. And my refund, it wasn't even significant. It was only $700. So just to file with Liberty Tax, it would have cost me more than I would have gotten. And I could not afford that at all. And towards the end, all they've really said was, well, you can try to file it on your own. So I was left in the dust just trying to figure out how to just file my tax like every American's supposed to. So, yeah.
Well,
So
hopefully now that you know that there's available tax services for you.
Yes.
So I just wanted to finish by saying, notwithstanding last tax season, Campaign for Working Families served over 22,000 unique individuals, filed over 40,000 tax returns, returning over $32 million to hardworking individuals and families, which saved them over about $7 million in tax preparation fees. So the provision of free tax preparation services by the Campaign for Working Families is not just a matter of financial relief, but a foundational support for economic justice and equity in Philadelphia. By empowering our residents to confidently navigate tax obligations and maximize the earned income tax credit. I urge the Philadelphia Council to recognize the importance of these services and support policies that ensure transparency in tax preparation fees and foster the expansion of free tax assistance programs. Together, we can make a tangible difference in the lives of Philadelphians, promoting financial stability and opening doors to future opportunities. I thank you for your attention and your commitment to the welfare of all Philadelphians. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Jones?
First and foremost, let me thank you and the efforts of the campaign, in particular in my district. You, for a long time were in the Parkside community. At first, I confused you with another working families group. After investigation of who was renting space in my district, found out it was you. And it was so rewarding to hear satisfied customers, say to me that you saved them money, you got them a refund. Before there was a stimulus package, before there were PPEs, there was tax return refunds. And you could hear people in the community say, you know what, if you wait a minute, when I get my tax refund, I'm gonna catch up on that rent, or I'm gonna buy that car. And my point is that those refunds are the gift that keep on giving to small businesses in our community to buy that extra bag of groceries. And so it means so much to the people who need it most. So for kudos to the author of this legislation for having the insight to actually hit it where it counts, which is at the dinner table, pocketbook, things for working families that matter so much. The only other thing that I would say is the information that you garner on tax returns, do you parlay that to show clients what else they're eligible for?
Absolutely. So each client during the intake process can note that they want to receive additional information or services if they qualify for unemployment compensation. We get funding from the Department of Labor and Industry for that, and then connection to critical resources and benefits. We also offer that, and we have partnerships with banking institutions if they're unbanked to get them banked, and so there's no criteria for that. Even if they had a previous bad experience, we still can get them connected. So absolutely, we definitely have wraparound services for all of the individuals that we serve.
Well, thank you again. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Gautier.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for your work and your testimony, and just all of the advocacy that you're doing to let Philadelphians know what they are entitled to, and the advocacy that you're doing around making sure that they get every dollar they're entitled to. I think one of the most striking things that I heard when we were talking about this bill last week was the story of a mom who was bilked out of her tax return but was counting on that money to take care of her son who has cancer. So when we're talking about the cash that families need, it's real. It's their health care costs, it's their rent, it's food, it's real. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more, if you're able to, about the type of companies that we're most trying to impact with this bill. Who are sort of the most prolific offenders of this type of predatory behavior, and who, can you tell us a little bit more about the companies we're trying to impact here?
Absolutely. So a larger number, Liberty Tax, H&R Block, Jackson Hewitt, we had a number of secret shoppers like Andy Tran that went out to, file a tax return with them. And I can't tell you when they came back to us after, kind of doing the secret shopper, situation or event that, for example, with Andy Tran, it was $998 for two 99s.
Okay.
That comes with like the DoorDash and the Uber or what have you. So they're definitely offenders. And you know that when you go to any one of them, less than $13 actually stays in the community that gets spent there. So H&R Block was a serious offender as well. One of the mothers who had two children, she worked two jobs, she had two W-2s, and she went in and she didn't make that much money because even with two children, you could get up to $6,960. So just the fact that she got $2,000, she was gonna get back $2,666. They charged her almost $400 to do her tax return. The same was between Liberty and H&R Block, except for the difference was when she went to Liberty Tax, she was going to get somehow $600 more than she would have gotten at H&R Block. So it was a stark difference. So between a number of those, obviously bigger tax preparers that many of our Philadelphia communities from Black and brown communities go to, they are serious offenders. Even one single person that went to they were getting back $259 and they charged them $190. They walked out of there with $69.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Tran, thank you so much for sharing your experience. I'm sorry that happened to you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Mr. Gonzalez, will you please
Thank you.
come to the table? Just state your name for the record and then proceed with your testimony.
Buenos dias. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today on Bill 240087. My name is Will Gonzalez. I'm the Executive Director of SEBA. SEBA is a coalition-building organization in the Latino community of Philadelphia. We are the backbone to the SEBA Latino Equitable Development Collective. SEBA operates the longest-serving volunteer income tax assistance VITA site in the Latino community of Philadelphia. We applaud your efforts to enact Bill 240087 to protect Philadelphia consumers, especially low-income taxpayers targeted by many of the private tax preparers to extract fees from their client refunds and to collect their taxpayer data. In many cases, the bright lights and promises of private tax preparers blind people to bypass the information about the fees that they are being charged. This happens often because the fees are not revealed up front, and their clients have a false sense of being able to afford the fees because they are expecting a large refund. Many families are seeing their refunds, their earned income tax credit, their child tax credit reduced by an average of 7 to 15% due to the cost of private tax preparers. Bait and switch is not a trick limited to used car salesmen. This problem of costs and related junk fees is exacerbated by the cost of refund anticipation loans. In other words, at a cost, people can get their reduced refunds quicker than the 10 to 14 days promised by the IRS. This gives some tax preparers the opportunity to extract additional fees and to charge high interest rates for short-term guaranteed loans. The bill the bill we're considering today, and which I hope you support, gives consumers transparency. It allows people to determine the cost of the private tax preparation at the beginning of the conversation, not after time has been spent at an office sharing a year's worth of a household's private financial information. The bill also empowers consumers by giving them a right of action to go after unscrupulous private tax preparers. This is important as enforcement is in the hands of the aggrieved party. Beware of the wrath of an aggrieved consumer. The bill also offers Philadelphians additional power over private tax preparers by giving the consumer information about the availability of free tax preparation services in their neighborhoods. Philadelphia has a rich ecosystem of free tax preparation services. We need to do everything in our power to help people connect to this great resource. In most cases, those VITA sites, like SEBA and the Campaign for Working Families, connect those clients with asset-building programs, social services, income support, housing counseling, and utility assistance. With the consent of the clients, we use tax preparation as a gateway to asset building. So instead of extracting money from the refund, we are adding financial strength to every household we serve. That is our mission. We're not accountants. We're not tax nerds. We use this as a gateway to asset building and as a way to preserve money in Philadelphia. Most of the private tax preparers are from outside the state, and their fees end up outside of the city. Protecting people from predatory tax preparers is also important for people who are limited English proficient. Immigrants new to American financial systems and the English language are easier prey for the unscrupulous preparers. In the Latino community, we call the practice of predators who rip off immigrants in financial transactions notario fraud. Notarios present their offices as one-stop shops for various services. One of the services that you often see advertised by notarios is tax preparation. It is a natural extension of their scheme to defraud immigrants. It is important for immigrants to be current with their taxes. In general, filing taxes are demonstrations of good moral character according to the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. And in the application for naturalization, it specifically asks, have you ever not filed a federal, state, or local tax return since you became a permanent resident? It is important for immigrants that their tax returns are filled out correctly. Tax returns reflect the makeup of a household, the marital status of tax filers, the family income sources, and a person's honesty in claiming certain tax credits. Immigrants sometimes go to notarios even when they know that they cannot receive immigration relief. Everyone has a duty to file a tax return, even unauthorized immigrants. In general terms, the IRS requires that anyone with $4,000 worth of income file a tax return. The IRS created a number, the Individual Tax Identification, also known as the ITIN, so that unauthorized immigrants without Social Security numbers can file a tax return. SEBA specializes in helping unauthorized immigrants file their tax returns. We are blessed that Philadelphia, the Department of Commerce, recognizes the ITIN as a tax ID number to help those unauthorized immigrants open businesses. We also are blessed in Philadelphia to have a community development financial institution called Community First Fund that helps people with ITIN secure mortgages, business loans, and personal loans. Some people say that clients should know better and that they may be accessories to the shoddy tax return preparation by notarios and the excessive fees charged by some private tax preparers. This is an easy caricaturization. It ignores the complexities of the tax laws and regulations and how intimidating it is for the average person to prepare a tax return. It also ignores the professional responsibility that pay preparers should have. In Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia, barbers are more regulated than tax preparers. To be a barber, you need to secure a special license. That is not the case to be a private tax preparer. In many cases, tax preparers don't know that the notario prepared their tax return incorrectly or that pay preparer did something wrong. With a barber, at least you can easily tell a bad haircut. What makes it even worse is that when you get a shoddily prepared tax return, by the time you find out about it, the notario, the private tax preparer, may have already closed its shop. And worse, you face serious fines and fees from the IRS. I want to end my testimony with a respectful request. Further protect consumers by adding into the legislation protections against the improper sharing of taxpayer data. I highlight for you a report prepared by some members of Congress. This 2023 report found that major tax preparation companies were sharing sensitive tax data with big tax firms like Meta and Google. This included sharing extraordinarily sensitive personal and financial information with Meta, which was used for diverse advertising purposes. It also found that big tech firms were reckless in their data sharing practices and their treatment of sensitive taxpayer data. I provided a link to that report. I also want to highlight a comment by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau by the Center for Taxpayer Rights, which calls additional attention to the misuse of taxpayer data by refund transfer products when client data is shared with financial institutions to connect with those products. The Center for Taxpayer Rights highlighted how we cannot overlook the dangers of some private preparers sharing their clients' data. I quote, "Although these products provide profits to tax return preparers as part of the original transaction, they have the potential to affect a taxpayer's life for years after the filing of the return, when the taxpayer's personal, financial, and biographical data is shared with third parties. Their comments show how some refund anticipation loan providers trick consumers into forfeiting their federal protection over their data. I also provided a link to that comment. We need Bill 240087 to warn consumers about the dangers posed by private tax preparers in the realm of the sharing of financial and personal data. We applaud your efforts to protect Philadelphians and to help families keep more of their hard-earned money. Thank you very much for your attention to this matter. Please feel free to contact us if we could be of further assistance, and we'd be happy to help the Department of Revenue with any of the implementation needs. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Thank you, Will. Councilmember Cotillard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Mr. Gonzalez. Thank you for your testimony and for your work. I wanted to know, do you have a sense of how many people you're serving annually versus the amount of people that you could serve but aren't because they're going to the notario? And then secondly, what would it mean for your community to have people have free tax preparation that they're entitled to, that's prepared accurately, that gives them more money in their pocket, and keeps more of that money in the local community?
Thank you for the question. Thanks to the leadership of City Council, CEBA has been able to expand its activities around free tax preparation. We have ACE and Congreso also doing them. That's thanks to your funding of the Poverty Action Fund and the Promise. And it also has allowed CEBA to operate 7 days a week. And so, yes, we would love to see more clients. And obviously with the Campaign for Working Families and some of the other members of the Promise and the Poverty Action Fund, we can develop that capacity to serve them.
Awesome. And then, you know, what do you think it would mean for your community to have more of this funding in people's hands, in their homes, and in the local community?
Well, we've seen situations where we've literally taken people who, including unauthorized immigrants who come in, file their tax return. As you know, due diligence requires any financial institution that lends money to see 3 years of tax returns. And so also to be able to keep the $500, $600, $700 that instead of paying to a preparer to keep it in their pocket, to use that to help fix their credit, to put them in a better position for a down payment for a home. So it means a lot. Now, we have to compete with the Super Bowl ads that talk about, you know, getting your refund and immediately. But, you know, I don't think yes, sometimes it is hard for somebody to wait 10 days to get their refund. So those are some of the challenges. I mean, some cities and some VITA sites have worked with some CDFIs, Community Development Financial Institutions, to create their own fast refund fund. But I think it's a matter of reinforcing the need to access those good quality free products. Like I mentioned before, you know, barbers are more regulated than tax preparers. VITA sites are required to take certifications by the IRS. We get monitored by the IRS. We get audited by the IRS. So we are very regulated. We're very successful at what we do. Having more capacity with more demand would help serve the community better and help Philadelphia keep some of that money.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, yeah.
Councilmember Young.
Thank you. Mr. Gonzalez, do you know like how many of these what you call notarios are either enrolled agents with the IRS, certified public accountants, or attorneys?
No, and so what happens is they play on a term of literal translation of the word notary into Spanish. So to be a notario in some Central and South American countries, not only do you have to be an attorney, but you have to be like extra, and they have additional powers. So they just take the word notary, translate it into a notario, and then people look at it. So we have some challenges, and again, City Council has played a leadership role on this. They've a while back, they passed some laws regulating some of the notarios, but at the same time, they pop up. I mean, you know, you guys are in your districts, not only the notarios, but the private tax preparers. You'll see they'll put up a shingle, they'll put up a storefront, end of December, and by the end of April, they're gone. Some of the more national chains will retain some presence, but even they put up pop-up places and leave. So the notarios come and go, and then there's also the informal economy, where somebody's neighbor is on the side doing these things. I think this legislation will help address some of that too, because it gives a right of action for people to report some of these things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, we'll call up the next panel. Panel 3, Cheryl Martinez, Laszlo Beth, and Lauren Smith. Sherilyn, if you want to start first, just state your name for the record and then begin with your testimony.
Can you hear me?
Try it again.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, my name is Sherilyn Martinez. I'm the Assistant Director of Tempo's Low-Income Taxpayer Clinic. So every year, we represent dozens of low-income taxpayers who have disputes with the IRS. In many of these cases, the tax controversies arise because of unscrupulous paid tax preparers. Frustratingly, the lack of federal tax regulations of paid tax preparer means that taxpayers are often without recourse to address problems that arise from these preparers. At the same time, so many taxpayers are unfortunately unaware of free tax preparation services staffed by IRS certified volunteers. As such, too many taxpayers often see portions of their refunds withheld for outrageous fees by some paid preparers or fall victim to egregious errors on these returns. At worst, we have seen intentional tax preparer misconduct that has included stolen refunds and identity theft. And these cases can take years to resolve with the IRS. Therefore, it is vital that low-income taxpayers know about and avail themselves of the benefits of free voluntary income taxpayer assistance VITA sites. Right here in the Philadelphia region, we have many such programs, including Temple University and Campaign for Working Family in SABA. Overall, VITA sites have much, much lower rates of error with a 94% return accuracy rate. The volunteers who work at these sites must take IRS-created tests to qualify for certifications before they work on returns. Every year, we tell clients about these services, and every year, some of these clients say that they had never heard of these programs. It is heartening when they tell us then that they went to these sites and got their returns done, and that they even told their families and friends, who then went to use the VITA services as well. Here in Philadelphia alone, there is so much money left on the table in terms of unclaimed refundable credits, like the Earned Income Tax Credit and the Child Tax Credit, that certain paid preparers sometimes miss or that they wrongly claim with incorrect documentation. When these preparers make such errors, it is costly for our clients. When you have such a high poverty here in the city and such significant benefits within the tax code to help reduce poverty, it is imperative that taxpayers be aware of free, reliable, safe, and secure programs that are easily accessible and do not prey on them. At their core, these VITA sites are about just that. Establishing financial security for taxpayers who rely on these refunds every year as part of their annual household budget. Every dollar that taxpayers save to provide for themselves and their family is a dollar invested in our community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Laszlo?
Yes, hello. Thank you, council members. Thank you to this committee. My name is Laszlo Bay. I am a supervising attorney at Philadelphia Legal Assistance in our Taxpayer Support Clinic. Philadelphia Legal Assistance supports the passage of Bill number 240087. Philadelphia Legal Assistance, otherwise known as PLA, has been in operation since 1996 and is one of the largest nonprofit organizations in Philadelphia dedicated to providing free legal assistance to low-income Philadelphians. For more than 10 years, PLA has run a low-income taxpayer clinic through which it has offered legal assistance to low-income taxpayers who have disputes with the IRS regarding their tax returns. Low-income taxpayer clinics, otherwise known as LITCs, are congressionally established programs that are overseen by and funded in part through matching grants issued by the IRS's Taxpayer Advocate Service. Within the last few years, the IRS has begun funding a second LITC in Philadelphia at Temple University's law school. There's also a long-standing LITC just outside of Philadelphia that is run by Villanova's law school. You heard from Christine earlier. There are several other LITCs in Pennsylvania, and throughout the United States, there are over 130 low-income taxpayer clinics. PLA's LITC, known as the Taxpayer Support Clinic, does not routinely prepare tax returns, and we do not hold ourselves out as tax preparers. In fact, the terms of the LITC grant prohibit us and the other LITCs from advertising tax return preparation as services we provide. In other words, we're not in competition with paid tax preparers. In essence, the LITC program is different than the volunteer income tax assistance, the VITA sites, that the IRS also oversees and partially funds, and which provide free tax preparation to individuals and families making under $64,000 per year. We speak today in support of this bill from our perspective of having seen some of the outrageous prices charged by paid tax preparers in Philadelphia, whose tax preparation has nonetheless oftentimes caused the problems with the IRS that lead our clients to come to us for help. And as Sherlyn said, fixing those problems can take years. We do not learn in every case how much our clients were charged, but in some cases we do, and it is both enraging and disheartening that there are business people who are not ashamed to be charging these fees. By way of examples, we have seen clients who have been charged such unconscionable tax preparation fees as $800 for a taxpayer with 4 children and total income less than $40,000, $680 for a taxpayer with 1 child and total income less than $24,000, $490 for a taxpayer with 2 children and total income less than $15,000. These fees do not include additional charges such as for software usage and banking products that can add well over $100 to the total cost to the taxpayer. And these cannot be isolated cases because they are being charged by established tax preparation companies in Philadelphia. Incidentally, the IRS bars tax practitioners from charging unconscionable fees to represent taxpayers before the IRS, but tax preparers are not governed by the IRS because tax preparation has been determined not to count as representation before the IRS. It should be noted that the tax returns prepared in these examples could not or should not have taken the preparer more than 1 hour of time maximum. Remember, these tax preparers themselves are using software that does most of the work of preparing the tax return. What other industries are you aware of that charge poor people and low to mid-income folks over $500 an hour? These fees are simply unjustifiable. The reason that low-income people are able to pay these outrageous prices is that in almost all cases they are not paying out of pocket, and instead the fee is getting taken out of their refunds. These refunds are primarily comprised of the federal earned income tax credit and the additional child tax credit, 2 of the United States' signature anti-poverty programs, as well as from the income tax withholdings that were taken out of their paychecks as they worked. In this way, low-income Philadelphians and taxpayers at large who fund the social safety net are being taken advantage of by tax preparers who charge exorbitant fees. This bill will not deprive the paid tax preparation industry of substantial clientele. Many low-income taxpayers, if not already aware of free tax preparation options, will, even after learning of them, still choose to pay to get their tax returns prepared by paid preparers. In part, this is because the range of refund products available from paid tax preparers is often more attractive to taxpayers than what the VITA programs can offer. Chiefly, the free tax preparation services cannot offer the free advanced services offered by the paid preparers, whereby the tax preparer will receive part or all of their anticipated refund from the tax preparer or from financial companies linked to the preparer before the IRS or state has even processed the return. But good news, we heard from, I think, Mr. Gonzalez that maybe there is a way where the VITAs can work on having some anticipation products. That would no doubt be better. Additionally, for those folks who go to a paid preparer that does not offer refund advances and who will have to pay out of pocket, the notice requirement in this bill will ensure that they are not forced to come up with a cash or take out a loan just to obtain the government assistance bundled into their tax refunds. And that notice requirement will likely lead by word of mouth to greater awareness in the community of both the free tax preparation options as well as the federal earned income tax credit and additional child tax credits. But this bill will impose a minimum of decency on that element of the paid tax preparation industry that currently lacks such decency. If tax preparation companies are going to be allowed to charge unjustifiable and outrageous prices, at the very least, they should be required to inform potential customers who qualify for free government-sponsored tax preparation of that option before taking their money. This bill echoes the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania's recent efforts begun under then Attorney General Governor Shapiro to combat unfair profiteering by the paid tax preparation industry. As Pennsylvania's current Attorney General, Michelle Henry, said last year of the multi-state settlement that followed an investigation which found that Intuit, through aggressive and deceptive marketing, tricked consumers into paying for TurboTax products that were available for free, quote, by requiring consumers to pay for tax return services that should have been available for free, Intuit cheated taxpayers out of their hard-earned money. Intuit's deceptive practices and aggressive advertising campaign were unnecessary and illegal, especially when the IRS offers free tax return services for eligible consumers, end quote. The above statements are not meant to vilify all paid tax preparers. The tax return filing requirements imposed by the federal, state, and local government are excessively complicated and are long overdue for radical simplification. But until that happens, there is a need for tax preparation assistance, and those preparers who charge a fair price and perform competently, of whom there are many, and who perhaps make up the majority of paid tax preparers, provide a valuable service in helping people comply with daunting obligations imposed upon them by their government, not to mention to obtain the crucial economic support that has been woven into the Internal Revenue Code. And we see no reason why these good preparers would object to this bill, which imposes a minimal requirement and which will not take away the paying clients upon whom they depend to make their living. Therefore, Philadelphia Legal Assistance supports the passage of Bill number 240087. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Laura?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Laura Smith. I'm a staff attorney at Community Legal Services, and CLS is pleased to have the opportunity to provide testimony this morning about Councilmember Landau's bill number 240087 regarding tax preparation service providers. CLS was established by the Philadelphia Bar Association in 1966, nearly 60 years ago. Since then, CLS has provided legal services to more than 1 million low-income Philadelphia residents, representing them in individual cases and class actions, and advocating on their behalf for improved regulations and laws that affect low-income Philadelphians. As the city's largest provider of free legal services, CLS represents 13,000 of the city's poorest residents each year, working with them to navigate legal problems. Our Homeownership and Consumer Rights Unit represents low-income clients with consumer law issues, including people who have been taken advantage of by unfair and deceptive business practices. Since the late 1960s, CLS has had a neighborhood law office at Broad and Erie in the heart of North Philadelphia. In our office, we counsel clients on how to protect their limited income and avoid being scammed by predatory residential property wholesalers, shady home contractors, and high-pressure debt collectors. Meanwhile, just outside our office, within a block of where we represent clients every day, commercial tax preparers lure our clients inside with promises of quick cash and maximizing their annual income tax returns. There's a couple more for-profit tax preparers just a couple blocks away. These companies charge hundreds of dollars, as we've heard, for a service that most Philadelphians can get for free by visiting a nonprofit Vita site, like those hosted by Campaign for Working Families. For CLS clients, filing income tax allows them to qualify for the Earned Income Tax Credit, the EITC, which can refund up to $7,000 into their pocket. This money can be used to catch up on bills, invest in their children's education, or allow a family to treat itself to a weekend vacation. The EITC is widely understood to be one of the country's most successful anti-poverty policies, and each year we see CLS clients use their refund to pay for food, their EITC to pay for food, make much-needed repairs to their home, or catch up on their most important bills. Unfortunately, for-profit tax preparers take enormous bites out of the EITC tax return, that money that our clients so desperately need. Together, these for-profit tax preparers suck millions of dollars out of low-income Philadelphia neighborhoods every year. Councilmember Landau's bill is a common-sense approach that will help protect consumers from exploitation in the marketplace by empowering them to make informed decisions. As we've heard, the bill will do two things. First, it will require that tax preparers disclose their fees up front. No longer will consumers be forced to wait until after the tax preparer has begun their tax return, when the consumer feels captured and unable to freely leave, before they are advised of the basic costs charged by the tax preparer. Second, it will require that customers be informed of free tax filing options available to them. Tax preparation assistance is provided at these high-quality VITA sites for free by trained workers who have been approved by the IRS. With this information disclosed clearly from the start, this bill will allow our clients to make an informed, free choice between using a costly for-profit tax preparer or a free nonprofit tax preparer, such as the IRS-supervised VITA sites. And for those clients that choose to use a free site, they will be able to walk away with more money in their pockets to care for their families. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify. We're grateful to Council for addressing this very important issue and look forward to continuing to work with Council to ensure that more clients can claim and keep their EITC.
Thank you, Laura, for your testimony. Are any questions for this panel?
Just a real comment, Mr. Chairman. You just gave me a flashback of when I used to work in the summers, and it was for a very little amount, but they took taxes out, and you filed that, and I'll never forget, back then, those U.S. Treasury checks that would come, and you would see it in the mail and get so excited about your refund, like you felt empowered and that you were getting your money back. And the more of it that we are able to do to your bill, make sure that stays in the hands of working people, the better. So thank you for what you do. CLS is amazing and in many different ways. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilmember Gautier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to all of you for your testimony, but more importantly for the hard work that you're doing on behalf of Philadelphians. For most of the hearing, we've talked about sort of these outrageous undisclosed costs that are charged to folks who are mostly eligible for free services. But a few of you also touched a few times on the difference between the competency level at the VITA sites, where people are well-trained and certified, and some of these large predatory companies. Can you expound upon the most common errors that you've seen with some of the for-profit paid preparers, and what those errors have meant for people and families?
Well, would require a long answer. There are a lot of mistakes around who can be claimed as a dependent and who cannot be claimed about filing status. And then there's a lot of issues around sometimes how income should be reported. And there's lots of, well, anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Also seen a lot of tax preparers putting their own bank account information on, a taxpayer's tax return, and that's a really big issue that, impacts a lot of our community because they don't check, they expect, and they put their trust in the tax preparers, to get their refund.
And what do these type of errors mean for people?
Well, as Sherlyn said, is when there's a mistake on the tax return and the IRS flags it, or then the IRS is moving very slowly these days, and it just takes a long time to unwind that stuff. Sometimes a taxpayer might not have received their refund because the IRS flags the issue before they issue the refund, and it can take years for that person to actually get their refund. Sometimes the person gets more refund than they should have, And perhaps that's connected to the lure and the willingness to, or not willingness, but the ability to stomach the high fees is the refund. But sometimes when people get more of a refund than they should, you know, that bounces back on them as a debt, which is more than just the extra refund they got, but also penalties and interest, which then takes away future refunds when the IRS tries to collect, and just causes general stress to be involved in a dispute with the IRS and to owe the IRS.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you all for your testimony. Much appreciated. We'll now call our fourth panel, Stephen Ryan, David Ransom, Kim Busby. Steve, if you want to start, state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Sir, we're going to do us first, and then we're going to switch out and have the other panelists sit here.
Sure.
Thank you. So my name is Stephen Ryan. I'm an attorney. I was barred here in 1980, so Lincoln and I did law together. I bring the same integrity to what I'm about to say to you that I did as an assistant U.S. attorney, as an organized crime prosecutor, and as chief counsel of a Senate committee. The bottom line is the industry does more than any industry I know of in America to provide free services. The program that I created with IRS in 2003 has served over 70 million people with free tax returns. During COVID, we served people with 8 million EIPs, where they were people who were going to get money in the COVID money, but they hadn't filed a tax return. That program is a lawful program between the IRS and industry. So the industry has given away, in that program alone, over $2 billion worth of services if you only multiply each return by $30. If you talk about the astronomical numbers that are being talked about here, it'd be $10 billion. Second, last year, our industry did, if you only talked the top 10 companies, 27 million free tax returns last year. So as we sit here and hear what you're being portrayed as an industry, those are facts, and I would go under oath and give you those facts because I'm the one who collected it. I had an FBI agent interact with each company and get those numbers, and then we submitted them in writing to the IRS as a requirement of the program that we serve. So what I want to convey to you is we actually share the same intent for transparency as an industry and to give free services when we can. But at the same point, and Mr. Ransom will pick up at this point, this bill is unconstitutional as drafted. I'm retiring from the industry. I would not take this case to defend the bill because it violates the First Amendment in terms of speech, not on the transparency issue. The transparency issue is independent. You can't make businesses talk about the services that government wants you to provide. And I know that's the case because we all support that not occurring when women would have to be told something about abortion because a state passes a law that requires that they be told certain things. In other words, it's the same First Amendment right. So I would ask you to actually get an opinion from the city's lawyers about that aspect of the bill, and then we would like to work with you on making the transparency provision in this as workable as it is. And you'll find when you talk to the people who actually do tax preparation for a living, you can't tell exactly what the return's going to look like. There are 400 major forms that are used. In my free file program, we provide 40 forms, but if you go outside of that, you can't do it. $78,000 this year is the level. If anybody has an AGI of below 78,000, you can use our free program, which is on the IRS website. So I thank you for your time and attention today, to knowing that the industry has a side that I wanted you to make sure you knew factually.
Chairman Squilla, members of the committee, my name is David Ransom. I'm counsel to the American Coalition for Taxpayer Rights, also known as ACTR. We're the trade association for the national tax preparers. Steve is my former law partner, and we collaborate daily on these issues. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on Councilmember Landau's bill. Yesterday, ACTR members and the council member and her staff had the opportunity to have a cordial, respectful conversation about the bill and our concerns about it, and I'll share those momentarily. First, a word about the Trade Association. It was formed in 2011, and as I mentioned, it's national tax preparers, not just the retail brick and mortar storefronts that you're familiar with, and some other witnesses will testify about from Block and H&R Block and Liberty and Jackson Hewitt. But our members also include the DIY companies, do-it-yourself, predominantly online, like Intuit, TurboTax, and others. And then our membership also includes those companies that make a professional product that you're all familiar with, that accountants and lawyers who prepare taxes typically would use. So our members assist in the preparation and filing of approximately 120 million. Our small membership, there's only 12 of us, 120 million of the 160 million federal income tax returns that are filed annually. So I just wanted to give you that scope. And we also are obviously involved in the filing of state income tax returns, so for Pennsylvanians, state income tax returns here as well. As Steve said, the figure we have is 28.6 million free returns last year provided by this industry, and Steve outlined the methodology that we used to aggregate that figure. And that 28.6 million includes 2.8 million within the IRS free file program and 25.6 million free federal income tax returns through the preparers' commercial websites and whatnot. That figure does not even include I believe it's approximately 4 million through the VITA program that operates with the Internal Revenue Service.
It's actually less than 3, but we support VITA, by the way, as well as a.
So as we explained, and I'll be brief here, as we explained to the council member yesterday, we want to work with her and we want to work with you to begin a dialogue that ensures that her bill does not have unintended consequences for businesses and taxpayers in Philadelphia. We've seen this a lot in other jurisdictions over the time that we've represented the industry. We believe there are significant issues with the bill as currently drafted, including the following, and Steve touched on this. In our judgment and in my written testimony that was submitted for the record, the case is cited. In our judgment, the bill does violate the First Amendment. And the real rub here is that you would be requiring commercial enterprises in the city to tell customers seated right in front of them, perhaps, about free competing alternative services. If the city of Philadelphia wanted to promote free services, whether VITA, Free File that Steve operates, or other free offerings, as we've heard from some of the other witnesses, if the city wanted to do that, or you wanted to do that respectfully in your districts, absolutely 100% that is fine. But our view is that requiring private sector tax preparers to tell customers / clients, taxpayers, literally in their office about competing products, that is a violation of the First Amendment per the United States Supreme Court. I'll be very brief. We redlined the councilwoman's bill, and I'd ask that our red line be put in the record, Mr. Chairman. And if the city, again, if the city wants to put a document on its website about no-cost alternatives, a free tax preparation, that is 100% permissible. We have no problem with that. So we do believe that the bill's language needs to be tightened in several respects. One of the most important is the language currently regarding the disclosure is to provide a detailed explanation of the cost of service. We believe that's too broad and undefined. We, in the red line you'll see, we believe that you should require a policy or statement setting forth the services and the estimated cost, which would be much more useful for taxpayers. And then finally, on the private right of action, we believe that your enforcement mechanism, the city should be the enforcer. We don't believe that you should create a new private right of action for taxpayers. Equally important, we think that where there is an alleged violation, that in fairness to the preparer community, that they be given the opportunity to cure. So the city would send them a notice. We believe you're in violation of our policy or our ordinance, that they be given a number of days, 20 or whatever that might be, to cure that deficiency. And in fact, if they don't, and there is a deficiency, that then they would be subject to penalties. So again, on behalf of our membership, ACTR, we want to work with you. We want to thank you for your consideration and willingness to talk with us, to the council member. We really appreciate that. Finally, we would ask that you hold a vote on this bill for today and that we continue our dialogue and let the process move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll hold questions until your completed testimony.
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Kim Busby. I have been born in Philadelphia, educated through the Philadelphia public school system, and have been an H&R Block tax professional and team lead for the last 37 years. I manage 3 H&R Block offices that are located within South Philly. That includes me serving over 30 preparers and staff members under my care. I'm here today on behalf of H&R Block and as a tax preparation professional to ask you to amend Bill 240087. Each year, we are proud to help thousands of Philadelphians prepare their taxes and receive their benefits. We understand and support Council's consumer protection goal, but without change, we believe this bill will be difficult to apply in practice and have unintended consequences for taxpayers and professionals alike. Asking potential clients to sign the list of city-approved free tax preparation services does not consider rather those taxpayers are in fact eligible for those services. Many common filing situations are not supported by the free tax preparation services available. There is sure to introduce confusion on the part of the taxpayer and the tax professional. We well know that services that cannot be provided by free services, then to talk about it is confusing. We have the example of gig workers, such as Uber or Lyft. Many of them are not eligible for the free services. And we are now required to ask them to review and sign a document before we even start the conversation. We ask you to amend the bill to instead require the city to make available a list of all available free tax preparation services on their website and through their other channels. We at H&R Block are proud to have an upfront, transparent policy. We support this part of the bill's intent, but we ask you to amend the language to ensure it considers the nature of the tax preparation process. Because each client's situation is different, we often don't know the final cost of the preparation service until the end of the interview. There are many scenarios where the total price of a client's service could change, and we ask that the bill consider this. H&R Block has long advocated for policies that protect taxpayers from unscrupulous preparers. And we are leaders in upfront, transparent pricing disclosure. I see it every day, how my tax professionals at H&R Block truly put their clients first. I ask that you please consider amending Bill 240087 so that we can continue to serve our clients in the best way possible. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak to you today.
Thank you. Thank you all for your testimony. Councilmember Landau.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that the bill would require the city to hold the list. This wouldn't be a list that would be distributed by the tax preparers. You would instruct people that if they're eligible, the city would have these list of free tax sites available to you.
Thank you. Councilmember Gautier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had questions about Mr. Ryan's testimony and Mr. Ransom's testimony, which was sort of similar. Much of the testimony talked about how much the industry is already providing by way of free tax preparation services, and talks about the industry in a very benevolent way, that you share that goal. I don't know if what you're testifying about as far as the First Amendment violation is true, but I'm imagining that only becomes a problem if you challenge this. So if the industry is as benevolent and shares the same goals around providing free tax preparation, why would you challenge or not be in support of an effort to provide low-income people with free tax preparation and let them know, what they're entitled to?
Yeah, first let me say that's a great question, Council Member. H&R Block and Ms. Busby can speak to this. They have a program internally where they identify people who come in that they determine are eligible for free service. So they have their own processes there. Why would we consider challenging this, which I don't think needs to be the case, but the problem is that if this were to occur in multiple jurisdictions, you can imagine the practical difficulty of national companies trying to conform to each of these jurisdictions' requirements, right? And so we had an example in Albuquerque, and thankfully we're talking about this bill, the council member's bill, before it's been considered by the full council. There was a situation in Albuquerque where it became law before we knew about it. So then we went to the staff and the council. I'm telling you this just because we pointed out the First Amendment issues among others, and we talked with them, and ultimately the city council amended the bill, and it was amenable to both industry and the city council members who were trying to do the same thing, which was well-intentioned, is to help lower and moderate income folks out. So does that answer your question? So
you're not going to challenge this? You support the goal of this, and you're not
the whole of this? No, I didn't say that. No.
Okay.
No,
you said that the industry is providing a lot of free tax preparation?
Yes. Yes.
So it seems like you would support the goal of this
legislation. Well, we're absolutely, no, maybe I misunderstood your question. Yeah, we're absolutely supportive of providing, as Steve and I said, our industry provides millions of free tax returns annually. We're very supportive of that. The issue here is the requirements that are associated with this bill, and if you applied them in multiple jurisdictions all around the country, that would be problematic from industry standpoint.
Thank you. I have a question for Ms. Busby. Thank you for your testimony. I definitely understand your testimony around maybe wanting to see more fullness in the description of the free tax preparation services, but I don't understand why. I mean, that would just demand giving more information through the tax preparation services. If you want people to have more of an accurate description about the free tax preparation services available to them, I don't think that there needs to be an amendment to, not have the for-profit or private tax preparation services provide that info. Maybe that's just about providing more info about who is eligible. Would that work?
I guess what we're looking at here is the fact that when clients sit with us, it's a build of trust. It's a shared experience between us and the client. So when we begin to talk about the free services, those that don't qualify for it want to then question why they don't. So it would depend on how much information is being provided for the client before they come to us. Because as we heard, there are different levels of what can be done free by which agency's doing it. As the gentleman sat here and said, if it's beyond those 414 forms, they don't do it. So that means that we now have to educate ourselves on which ones will and which ones won't, and then have that whole conversation, which could, again, impact the conversation we're having with our clients.
Would that be hard for a very large national company to do? You're already, taking in quite a lot of information about tax laws. Would it be hard for you to take in more information about free tax prep services?
Would it be hard? I'm sure we'd be able to have the conversation if the information is provided to us, because we would not be able to develop that ourselves because we don't know what each of the free agencies offer. So in them providing it to us, then we having to discuss it. We feel that if it's provided to us, it could also be provided to the citizens of the city without having to come through us.
The bill offers both, to my understanding. The city would provide the information, and the private tax preparation services, like H&R Block, would provide the information.
Then we're also required to have them sign something, correct?
Yes, but you're asking people to sign a lot of things during the process of your business?
We're asking them to sign documents that impact their tax return, yes, ma'am.
Thank you. And then I wanted to know if either of you had a response to some of the testimony around undisclosed large fees, errors on returns. What's your response to that?
Is that for both of us, Councilmember?
Yes.
Do you want to go ahead?
Certainly. Again, as I said, H&R Block has a policy where we offer upfront transparent pricing, which means before we actually begin the return, we evaluate the documents, and we allow the clients to know upfront what the estimated price would be based on the documents we have in front of us. Now, there are times that they bring other documents in after, and then we alter the conversation through the preparation. I guess as far as errors are concerned, H&R Block stands behind their product, because if a client has an error, we are open all year. We don't have all of our offices open, but we make sure offices are centrally located. And if the client can't get to the open office, we do arrange for tax pros to meet clients in offices that are more convenient for them, and we help them resolve the issues.
Thank you.
I would say just briefly, first of all, regarding some of the prior testimony that we heard, the anecdotal stories and whatnot, I mean, that's egregious. It's outrageous in some of those instances. It can't be defended. If that was my son, my daughter, my sister, I would have a similar reaction. But I would also argue that we shouldn't allow anecdotal evidence necessarily to drive policy here. So to the question about errors, I reject fundamentally that free tax preparers and the other folks you're going to hear from, I think, on the next panel can speak in a more qualified way even than I can on this in regard to errors. The notion that free tax preparation is somehow substantively better than commercial tax preparation, and I don't accept that at all. I reject that outright. Commercial tax preparers have an incentive to find every deduction and credit that you or the people you know that go to them for the service are eligible for, because they want you to be pleased. They want you to come back next year. Oh yeah, I'm eligible for EITC. So I don't accept the idea that somehow free tax preparation is substantively better than commercial tax preparation.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilmember Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for your testimony. I apologize for having to leave the chambers for a moment, but was listening online to the hearing. I had a very quick question for this panel. When clients come in now who qualify for free tax preparation services, how do you engage with them now, like currently? If someone comes in that you find, after reviewing their information, is eligible for a free tax preparation service, what do you all do?
Ms. Busby.
Once we go through the transparent pricing, if they have concerns, I've actually directed clients to H&R Block has a free DIY product, and I've actually shown them how they can go. I use my computer in the office, how they can go directly to hrblock.com, where to locate it. I explained to them the actual steps they would go through. A lot of it's very simple. They can take a picture of the W-2, because the W-2 or any of the other tax documents has to be part of the return. Take a picture, and how they can actually just upload it. And if they'd like us to review it, we also have a process of what's called a second look, where we will also review that return for them to make sure it's accurate if they would like us to, and that's free of charge.
And so I guess my question is, what is the standard operating procedure? And I recognize that I believe you're a manager of several H&R Block locations.
Yes,
What
ma'am.
would be the standard operating procedure in this industry at this time? I think we have representatives from another organization, from the American Coalition for Taxpayer Rights, H&R Block, and then Mr. Ryan. What is the standard operating procedure when someone comes in and you then discover they are eligible for this service? Because I think I tangentially remember a case with the federal government around TurboTax or something, where they had to pay a settlement because folks weren't aware, I guess, or easily notified that they were eligible to do the free file instead of paying. Can you just speak to what is the industry standard operating procedure, and then sort of your thoughts around that particular because I remotely remember that litigation.
Yeah, Councilwoman, I think that's a great question. I don't, and the gentleman on the next panel can, and Ms. Busby can probably address this better than I can regarding standardization. I'm unaware of like what the standard is in the industry. I think it's company by company. So our trade association, which includes lots of companies, or 12 companies, they may have varying levels of how they approach this question a taxpayer presents, and they're eligible for a free offering or free tax preparation, how they handle that. I honestly am not entirely sure how that occurs across various companies. So the Intuit TurboTax situation really related to, it's complicated for me, quite frankly, I'm not that tech savvy, related to how search results in, for example, a Google search were ordered, and was the IRS Free File program at the top of the list if someone put in IRS Free File program, or was it 4 or 5, entries down? And I think that revolved around that. My understanding is that that issue was resolved, and I know that Steve's organization, the Free File program, and the IRS, he works very closely with the IRS, as does our association. They resolved it, and it's largely not an issue now.
Thank you.
Councilmember Landau.
Yeah, just a quick question. Ms. Busby, Are you aware that the FTC filed a complaint against H&R Block in February of 2024 for deceptively marketing free services, where they called it, they said that H&R Block was leading customers into higher cost products, making for more complicated tax filings despite consumers not needing them?
No, I am not.
I am aware of that. And I think it's frankly a little bit unfair to be talking about an assertion by the FTC that has really not been fully adjudicated. So I can't speak for H&R Block, but I'm sure they'll defend themselves. And that's really all I can say about it on behalf of the trade association. But I would expect that the H&R Block operators in various communities wouldn't necessarily know about that either.
The question, you said Albuquerque, the legislation that passed there, was that passed there for offering free tax services?
Yeah, I believe, I have to jog my memory here, Chairman. I do believe the bill that became law, we didn't know about it until after it had been voted out by council, that it did require, similarly, tax preparers to inform customers, clients of free tax alternative offerings. And, you know, again, we presented the same case law to the staff and the city council after we learned that this had been enacted. So, you know, we had a good, sorry.
You didn't sue them after it became law?
We did not, because we had a very good dialogue with the staff and the city council, and they amended the bill. That was one of the very first gives in the negotiation, if you want to call it negotiation, in the discussion was their recognition that if they continued with this law, and we made very clear to them that we might well seek an injunction in court blocking the application of the law. They understood our position, and from their perspective, and you may have a different perspective, but from their perspective, they were willing to negotiate on that, and they removed that from the bill. And I believe we resolved it in a way that was amenable to industry and frankly was amenable to the city.
But there was no precedent or opinion?
No, there was no lawsuit. There was no legal action that was taken.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Young?
Yes, thank you. Can you, I guess, quantify for us, if you're aware, this is for any member that's out there on the panel, to let us know here, I guess in Philadelphia, in the region, like how many of the tax preparers are, at some of your places, particularly I guess for H&R Blocks, how many are your tax preparers, CPAs, attorneys, or enrolled agents with the IRS versus those that are just annual filing season program participants and PTIN holders?
I'll let H&R Block answer that, but I'm sure, Councilman, that they could provide you with those. You're looking for statistics or numbers on those?
Yeah, essentially, because again, when that's the premise of this legislation is a consumer protection model here, and when you have attorneys or CPAs, they're held to higher standards because they are licensed professionals. And so when there are just PTIN holders or those folks are just participating in the annual programs, there may be certain requirements, but they are not held to the same standards that some of these professionals are held to, and providing information to folks and making sure that the returns that are filed in a correct and moral manner, essentially, right? And so that's what we're trying to get to in addressing that problem with this legislation.
We'll get you those figures.
Thank you.
Thank you, too. And I know Councilmember Landau, who's very fair and working with all sides and open to this, will be also working with our law department to go over those things. So hopefully these questions and concerns will be able to be addressed.
Thank you very much.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I do have
Councilmember
one more
Young?
question. And how much would it cost your industry to provide this type of notice to consumers?
That I personally don't know, and we could get you that information as well. I don't know if Ms. Busby would know or not.
Actually, it would actually depend on, since most of our tax professionals are hourly, it would depend on the time it takes to have those conversations, making sure the client understands exactly what they're signing and what they have or don't have to do. It would have to be kind of computed as to what it would cost. I wouldn't have that off the top of my head.
And based on, I guess, the level of services that you all provide, how many clients do you think will opt to not use your service and, decide to go to one of the VITA regulated sites?
Again, I don't have the data to answer that.
I'd have to speculate. I mean, one figure did come up yesterday, and it's good to get in the, I'm glad that you asked that question. It's good to get in the record, is yesterday in our conversation with the Councilmember Landau, H&R Block represented, and we'll get you this figure, sir. H&R Block represented that last year, half of the returns prepared in the city of Philadelphia were provided at no cost. Half. So it's a significant number.
Thank you.
Councilmember Gautier? Oh, wait, Councilmember Jones.
No,
Councilmember
I
Jones.
yield.
All right, he yields.
I'm sorry, did you say half of H&R Block's tax preparation?
That is what was indicated yesterday, ma'am.
Okay, when Ms. Busby testified, she said that the free program was do-it-yourself on a computer. Is that, am I understanding that correctly, or do I have that, am I not understanding that? So the free tax prep is do-it-yourself?
That I'm not, I'm not sure if the figure that H&R, this is again from our conversation yesterday with a council member, I'm not sure if that figure was all DIY or if that was in addition some in-person tax preparation as well. But we can get those figures for you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Jones?
As I listen, I don't know who pays you, but they aren't paying you enough, because your argument made me think about, would Wendy's tell about McDonald's value menu? And I don't know if we would do that. However, in talking to my colleague here, we're not talking about burgers. We're talking about a scenario like where a hospital might let people know about free clinical services that might be cheaper or affordable. And that is because of the people's condition and particularly income, that might be a better way. So what I'm hoping is that we pass this out of committee and allow the author of this legislation to work with you to try to find out where those nuances are, that we don't want to unfairly penalize your industry, but we do want to find a wide berth of options for people who cannot afford to pay these fees. So I'm listening to what your argument is, but I also think that there is room for amendment as we pass this out of committee. That's just my thoughts.
Councilmember Richardson?
Just wanted to thank Councilmember Jones for those remarks. I too agree, and also believe we're waiting on information, additional information from the law department as well. And so I wholeheartedly concur with your remarks, Councilmember Jones. So thank you.
I'd like to thank the council member for his remarks too. Can I use them with my client?
Well, thank you for your testimony. Is there any other questions? Seeing none, thank you so much. Let's see who's next. Panel 5, we have Will Carter, Camille Salter, and Maurice David. Will, if you want to start first, just state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony, and we'll go in that order.
All right. It's great to be back in these chambers. My name is William Carter. I am Vice President of Local Government Affairs for the Chamber of Commerce for Greater Philadelphia. I have some prepared remarks, but I also have some other remarks at the same time. It's still morning, right? Yes. Good morning. Chairman Squilla, Vice Chairman Jones, and members of the Committee on Commerce and Economic Development. My name is William Carter, Vice President of Local Government Affairs at the Chamber of Commerce for Greater Philadelphia. I appreciate the opportunity to provide testimony on Bill 240887. The Chamber's vision is to make the Greater Philadelphia region a top global destination for business and a leader in inclusive growth. And we support public policy that encourages the growth and prosperity of the city of Philadelphia and our region. This bill, although well-intentioned, puts an undue burden on business owners and their operation, possibly infringes upon free enterprise and sets a precedent that could create a slippery slope affecting the bottom line of a lot of small business service professionals. Albuquerque, New Mexico, which was mentioned earlier, adopted a tax preparer ordinance which took effect on January 1st, 2023, with a very similar purpose. Albuquerque's ordinance requires tax preparers to provide service and fee disclosures, which we agree with, both written and posted out inside and outside the establishment to ensure consumers understand the tax preparer's obligations and qualifications and their rights as a consumer. A notable difference from Albuquerque's ordinance and this bill is a requirement to disclose information on free tax preparation services. This provision was also included in Albuquerque's ordinance, as was mentioned earlier, when first introduced, but was later amended to remove due to concerns about constitutionality and open potential to litigation against the city if challenged in court. Additionally, the state of New Mexico, you may not know, you do not have to be certified to prepare taxes, which is the impetus of this bill, and we know, obviously, that you don't have to be certified in PA. And this provision, eligibility to register as a taxpayer in the state of Pennsylvania, you must obtain a degree from an accredited college, and this is what we understand is the case here. The Chamber supports fair business practices. We understand that there have been reports of predatory behavior, which we do not agree with, specifically aimed at low-income individuals during the tax filing season, and we're supportive of reasonable solutions to resolve this issue. In the context of this bill, we support requiring tax preparers and respective establishments to be transparent on the cost of any service. That should happen in any business altogether. However, there are many concerns raised by our members as to the bill's currently written, specifically the requirement to provide consumer information with no or low-cost services. The Chamber remains committed to working with key stakeholders in both the public and private sector to ensure businesses in the city of Philadelphia are conducted fairly and equitably with the same considerations for any legislation that impacts their ability to grow and access free enterprise. As I was listening to this conversation, and once again appreciate everybody here, it sounds as though we're trying to target a specific group of bad actors, as we should. I mean, at the end of the day, if you have a business, you should be disclosing your costs. People should know how much it costs. Right out of law school, I worked in the entertainment industry. I had my own entertainment practice. I was all over the city doing contracts for a lot of nefarious people, a lot of non-nefarious people. I'll just say not everybody in the music industry is babyface. But at the end of the day, I put up front, these are my costs to do the contract. I was known as Councilman Young, sometimes I was known as Lawyer Boy throughout the city. I'd be down in West Philadelphia, Brooklyn Street, studio down that way right beside Bus's gym. You guys know Bus. He had sending people over to me all the time. But I was hustling in a good way, trying to make a living. I was in debt, not rich, not poor, but in debt, which is a different type of hustle when you have to make your rent, you have to eat, those type of things. And so I remember it being very hard to do business in the city as a young professional. However, as a licensed attorney, I know that I had to do it in a fair and fiduciary way. And many people in this industry, and I have a lot of friends who are in the tax preparer industry who are certified accountants. When you become certified, you actually have something to lose. You're not out here doing anything unscrupulous, although it can happen, but there's a further thing that you have to lose, which is your license if you're found to be doing something in an unscrupulous manner. And I think there's a better way to balance this bill so we're not affecting the people that you see out here during tax season. The reason you see them during tax season because that's tax season. Just like you see football players during football season. It's not like they're fly by night. They come out and then, they have other things that they do in the off season. But they're no less good business actors for the most part out here trying to make a living. And we're trying to make this city more palatable, more attractive for businesses, particularly diverse businesses. I'm pushing inclusive growth. Bottom line, what that means is more people making a good living inclusively, whether they work for themselves or for others. But our city gets a bad rap for businesses because we keep on piling impediment on top of impediment for small businesses trying to grow. And it's something that is known, honestly, nationwide. And I sat in this chamber for 16 years working for the former council president. I used to think that these businesses were crying wolf. Now I'm on calls on a regular basis where they say Philadelphia's a non-starter. It's just too much cost, too much red tape, and I'm like, I really get it. And I also get it from my standpoint from when I was a young attorney out here working for myself. So I think if we limit this bill, possibly an amendment, to say let's go after non-certified tax prep services, not licensed accountants who are out here trying to pay their student loans back, which I'm still trying to pay back. I'm 53. I'm still paying my student loan back. Maybe a bill about that. But I would just say that at the end of the day, there are people who are trying to make a living in this space who are not doing the wrong thing. And maybe if we have some type of amendment, we go to the non-certified tax preparers and say, this is something you need to provide if you're going to be non-certified. Maybe a balance to it. So with that, I'll end my testimony and just allow these gentlemen to speak.
Please proceed. State your name for the record, and then proceed with your testimony.
Good morning, Council. Excuse me. My name is Camille Salter. I'm a CPA in Philadelphia. I own 6 Liberty Tax stores. Opened my first store back in 2008. My grandparents had a tax office in West Philadelphia for many years. My mother's a CPA, had a tax office for many years. So I'm a 3rd generational tax professional, but I'm also, like I said, a CPA. I would say, just where our stores are located in a lot of low-income business corridors throughout the city, all of my staff are from those corridors. Excuse me. Like my staff, for the most part, this is the longest job they've ever had. They now have careers from working at these, with me. These people actually care about the job probably more than, they care about what they do more than I do. I mean, I try to say, take some time off, this and that. No, I want to come to work. I really enjoy what I do. But with that being said, having, every year we go through, 18 hours plus of training just to be able to, for Liberty Tax, just to be able to do tax return, just to do tax returns from Liberty's perspective. And, now having to offer, like when customers come in and they want us to do their work, they don't want to go anywhere else. But we say, hey, why don't you go check out this other place here? And for some people, it may be beneficial to get their taxes done for free, but a lot of times they still want us to provide the service. Or there may be the scope of the tax return maybe just be a little more challenging or a little more complex that a free place may not be able to do. So then they have to come back, and now they're angrier. Or when it comes to like after tax season per se, we are open year round. There's so many different things that happen after April 30th. Somebody gets a letter in the mail. How do I do this? My refund didn't come for whatever reason during the tax season, and now we're on the phone with the IRS trying to help you get your refund. Whether it's, in August, you need help with getting a copy of your tax return, FAFSA information. So many different things that we provide for services all year round. So part of the fee is not just for, oh, hey, we're going to get paid for taxes. So no, and November 22nd, when you need help, you have somebody you could call, you have a place to go, you can get assistance. And additionally, when it comes to the pricing, I mean, our price because a lot of times the customer, they come in and everybody's return is simple when it starts. It's always a simple return, but then as you get into the interview, you start going through things, you find out they had just so much more going on, especially now a lot of people, you know, they have small businesses, whether it's gig workers, rental properties, everybody's doing stocks and cryptocurrency, so things that come out of the conversation when they just thought, oh, it's simple. But now the price goes up, and if we would have gave you a price in the beginning, now I don't disagree with with the concept of upfront pricing. Actually, this year, for the first time ever, we have upfront pricing that the customers could see where they fall into. So it's their choice, and it's always, since day one for me, it's been free. It was always been free estimates with Liberty Tax. You were never obligated. Now, if a customer didn't like it and whatever, they didn't have to stay. We don't make you pay just to sit with us. That's never been the case. And from the customer perspective, just even things like with the City of Philadelphia, I don't know how familiar you are with the City of Philadelphia's tax preparation services, just to be compliant with Philadelphia. There's so many different, let's say, just if you have a rental property, you want to get your rental license renewed. If you don't have your tax return filed with the city, not with the state or the IRS or with the city, and a lot of people don't know how to do that. I mean, we in our offices, we have to actually people have to come pay us that they've already paid or go on another place to get their taxes done, but now they have to pay an additional fee because the other places don't know how to do these additional services. So we're not like, we have a lot of skills and experience that we've garnered over the years. And then lastly, I mean, I would just say, we're not it may appear, but we're not raking in millions of dollars. So when it comes, like, if there's ambulance chasers out there now saying, like, grouping up a bunch of people, say, did they tell you about their tax preparation fees? Okay, we're gonna get all these people. And so we may be able to prove that we did do these things, that we did provide the service, but if we have to pay $20, $30, $40, $50,000 in legal fees, we might as well just close all our businesses, which, are in business corridors that are already dying. I mean, we're like one of the last vestige of businesses that have been there. I mean, like I said, most of my stores, we're 10 plus years, and we're just, we've been handling business. So that's kind of just all I wanted to share in that space.
Thank you. Maurice, David?
Hi, sure.
Just state your name for the record and then proceed with testimony.
Yeah, hi, good morning, good afternoon, good morning. My name is Maurice David. I work for Jackson Hewitt Tax Service. I'm the regional manager for the Philadelphia area. So I just have a couple of topics to discuss. I don't want to be redundant. Most of the things have already been said. On a practical level, when you talk about a tax preparer, so if you think about coming into a store and asking a tax preparer, should I prepare with you or should I go free? It would be very difficult to think practically that tax preparer can make that assessment and understand everything that every free service offers, because that preparer would have to be trained in that, and that is not something that we regularly do. We don't train folks to teach them what this particular one offers, what H&R Block's free offer is, what Liberty's free offer is. We don't do that. And the other problem with that I see is if you refer someone to something free, you in a sense own that referral. So if they go to this free service, if they go to VITA and they weren't correct or they couldn't do it, they come back to you and say, hey, you referred me there, you own that referral. So I think from a just purely practical standpoint, it would be very difficult to ask preparers to figure all this out, understand this, learn this. The question previously was how many hours or what would it cost you to train these folks? So we train about 25 to 30 hours, due diligence, tax preparation. If we had to add geography, topography, geography, that you have to go to Smith Street, but you're here and I need directions, we would probably have to add several hours of training to teach them everything. So I think from a practical standpoint, that's a problem. And then the other comment that I heard was the whole regulation things. As paid preparers, we're highly regulated by the IRS, right? So if you file a return that is deemed to be fraudulent, your penalty is $500 per tax return. These are huge penalties. We are required to do due diligence. We are required to complete Form 8867. Non-paid preparers are not required to do that. So we do have regulation. We are regulated. We have long-term preparers that have been preparing tax returns in Philadelphia. We operate about 50 locations here and hundreds of Philadelphia-based employees. These are folks that live and work in these communities and prepare tax returns for friends, families, for a fee. That's what we do. So the whole point of being that we are regulated. The Internal Revenue Service highly regulates us. We can't share their information. IRS Code 7216 does not allow us to just share their information. We can't just give it out to anyone. They have to agree to that. So from a regulation standpoint, we are much different than non-paid preparers. So I just wanted to make that point. But again, I'll wrap it up by just saying that we are, a community-based business. Just like my friend from Liberty said, we have employees that live here and work here and have year-round jobs. We are open year-round. We are not fly-by-night. We have 5,200 Jackson Hewitt locations around the country. If you had your return prepared in Philadelphia and you moved to California and there is a letter and a problem, bring it right into a tax office. Right now we're dealing with rejects, right? The biggest reject the IRS has right now is this 1095A problem, right? If you got your health insurance through the exchange, well, we work through that with the taxpayer. We make sure we get that resolved. So I'm not sure if everybody else is doing that, but we do that. We have IP PIN issues that we help taxpayers resolve. So we are a service for a fee. We are a business in the city of Philadelphia, and that's pretty much all I have on this. Thank you.
If I could just add one more thing. We talked earlier about moving it out of committee without having the enforcement piece worked out. It could have a huge chilling effect here in the city on businesses if the community does not know what's going to happen once it's passed. And it hasn't been worked out as to how it will be implemented and how it will be enforced. I think that is a concern. I'm certain that's a concern of the business community altogether on any legislation passed. And, once again, we're trying to promote business growth here. We need more jobs here in this city. We need more people like this young man and this young man growing. And when they grow, what they hire. Nobody hires just to hire. They hire because they need help. And if they don't grow, they don't need help. We want to make sure that happens. So, just around the enforcement, around a clear set of guidelines, whatever happens with this legislation, should be worked out, in my opinion, before this legislation is passed, just so we don't have that chilling effect.
Thank you all for your testimony. Councilmember Jones?
Yeah, I just want to go on record thanking the Wilson family for their dedication to small business. Their Lansdowne Avenue office, I used to be responsible for delivering the payroll to them who did the accounting for the House of Umoja. And that treasury check that I talked about was because you guys did that. And is it grandparents? Jesus. That's Salters. Yeah, Janice. Oh, gosh. I feel horrible now. You're making me feel old, sir.
I went to camp with your grandson, so. I mean, with your son,
And did I hear you say you have 10 offices in neighborhoods?
Six.
Six. And that's incredible for that longevity. That's uncommon in business in general, but in fact for small black and brown businesses from the neighborhood. So thank you for that. And I would hope that you work with the author to provide your insight to what impact it has on you and your, how many employees do you have now?
Right now, about 18.
There you go. So again, thank your mama for your grandparents and all of you for what you do.
Thank you. Councilmember Gautier?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This question is for Mr. Salter, right? Yes. I don't know your mama and your grandmama like other people in the committee, but you certainly seem like an upstanding person. Thank you for your testimony. You talked earlier about providing your costs already up front as a matter of how you do your business. Can you just expound, as a franchise, how bound are you by the national practices of Liberty Tax? Because it was our understanding from the national company that those fees are provided right before, at the end of the process, right before filing.
So we are franchisees. Liberty Tax Corporate gives us recommendations, but as far as how we execute, they it could be different at every office. But I will say, at a corporate level, they have been pushing upfront pricing this year, but because a lot of franchisees are, you get stuck in your ways, there's fear of change with anything, fear of change. And so, our offices, we jumped on it, we did do it, but it's not the case for everybody or every Liberty Tax across the country. But I'm sure there are other Liberties across the country that are doing it. I can't say for what percentage of Philadelphia or just in general, but it has been a recommendation from corporate, but it's up to the individual's offices to decide how they want to do it.
Okay, I just wanted to sort of clarify that there's a difference between what you are doing locally as an upstanding citizen in providing your costs and what we understand as the practice of the corporation more broadly. And I also wanted to clarify for the record that this bill does not is not requiring a referral. This is about information provided to vulnerable people about what they are entitled to. So I just wanted to clear that up. And then I wanted to thank Mr. Carter for his testimony. I can certainly appreciate that, we want Philadelphia to be perceived as open for business, but I do firmly believe that our city's economic strategy cannot be built on extracting hundreds of dollars from people that, don't have to put that out, right? That can keep that money in their households and in their neighborhoods.
And can I just respond to that? I 100% agree with you. I don't think anything should be built off the backs of anyone as you just described. But what we are talking about is trying to make sure that we have an environment that's conducive to growth, whether you work for yourselves or for others. And as a city, our largest employers are government eds and nonprofit eds and meds. Not a lot of business density in this city because true data and actual anecdotal conversations have said Philadelphia is not a place to be if you want to run a business. And so when we keep on adding impediments on top of trying to grow, that message gets out there even more. I don't think anybody should be railroaded. I don't think anybody should. I do believe that there should be disclosure of fees to the extent that you can disclose your fees, that you can forecast that, certainly. And the barbershop was mentioned earlier. If you walk into the barbershop and he said, you can go on Broad Street and get your hair cut for free, which I pass by the guy every summer, it just doesn't even sound right coming out of an entrepreneur's mouth. But we want to make sure that people understand how much it costs. I didn't realize haircuts cost $50 now. Back in my day, it was $20. $50, so that's another bill. You can bring that up later. But I would just say, I would just say that, disclosure of costs is important so people know what they're getting into. You can't assume that all people are bad actors because there are bad few. We have a bad few residents out here, doesn't mean all of us are bad residents. And that painting that broad brush, which could inhibit their growth and add impediment and send a message that City of Philadelphia will always add on top of whatever they already have on top of the red tape that you go through to grow your business, is something that we don't want to be known for. We want to change that dynamic and get our city popping again.
Absolutely, but just to close out, as a sort of alternate view, this bill at the end of the day is about providing information to low-income residents about free tax preparations that they are qualified for so that they can keep money in their households and in our local economy, which is also a differing view on how we can stimulate our local economy. Thank you.
And having worked in this body for so long, I know when to stop.
Councilmember Young.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, I just wanted to reiterate what Councilwoman Gaudet has mentioned, that this bill requires a notice, and if you look at other legislation that this throughout this municipality and country, notice is required for employers to place in their place of businesses. We require landlords to provide notices to tenants. We require, commercial landlords to provide, zoning notices about rights. It's just about letting people know what their rights are and what's available to them from a consumer protection standpoint, again. But I do have a question for Mr. Salter, or even Mr. David, both of you all. what is the definition of a simple return? Like, is that a standard definition, or is that something that is, is a standard in the industry, or is it flexible? Like, can you describe that?
So, I mean, the definition of a simple return is what everybody says they have when they walk in. So a definition of a simple return to me would be a single W-2 with state and federal withholding. But that's the dilemma in this industry. Everybody, when you talk to them on the phone, when I talk to them, everybody starts with I have a simple return, except I had 5 rentals in the city and I have 1 in Louisiana. It's not simple anymore. I think that's where the point is missed. It's complexity. It may take an hour in software, but you still have to know how to do the tax return.
I would agree with that. I don't.
Thank you. I guess if they just have a W-2 and that's it, that's simple.
One more question, again, it's the similar question I asked earlier. If you could, I guess, provide us with information on, I guess, how many of your employees are, actual, CPAs, enrolled agents, or attorneys versus those that start participating in the annual filing season, or those that have, that are just PTIN holders?
So in our model, we have owners who are CPAs, EAs. We have employees who are EAs who've taken it upon themselves to train themselves. I can't give you a percentage of the several hundred employees that we have in the Philadelphia area. If I were to throw a number out to you, I would say 1 out of 10 would be an enrolled agent. As far as CPA and attorney, it would be hard to hire CPA and attorney to work in a retail tax office.
And Councilman, I'll see what I can do in terms of getting that data for you, at least based off, what we have at the chamber. I just add that when we talk about the notice, absolutely notice of rights, and I agree with you, are everywhere on in all types of entities. But we're talking about notice of competition or other services, which is a little bit different. And I know you get that. We've talked about it as attorneys. However, it's a little bit of a nuance there, and we can talk about that further.
Yeah, I just think that, letting consumers know that they have a right to a free tax preparation service is something that I don't see that as a competition to you all, because again, consumers are going to make the decision ultimately. You're not steering them to it. You're not making them go to these places. We're not mandating that these consumers utilize these VITA sites. We're just letting them know that you have a right to this particular service. Just like Miranda, when the cops lock you up, they got to tell you what your rights are, right? Yeah. And we just want to let you know. We want consumers to know what their rights are in this particular space and industry.
And I appreciate that. I don't know that it's necessarily a right, but there are other services. And so, yeah, your rights, you should definitely know your rights. I don't know if you have a right to these other services, but definitely we're talking about promoting that there are other options out here.
In the city of Philadelphia, if you make under $64,000 or less, you have a right to utilize the Campaign for Workers' Families. You have a right to utilize these free services in Philadelphia. That is a right that we as a body, as a city, has given to the consumer base by putting money into these places to allow them to utilize those services.
Okay, Councilmember Gilmore-Richardson.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and I wanted to thank you all for the testimony you provided, in particular to Mr. Salter. I had to put 2 and 2 together because I also did work with Janice Salter, CPA. So I thank you for your longstanding commitment and continued commitment to the community. My only ask is if you could today, prior to or at the conclusion of this hearing, share additional information with the sponsor, Councilmember Landau, regarding your specific concerns as a Philadelphia-based small business owner, as a sort of generational business, which is very, very difficult, and to sustain a business for 3 generations, particularly with a minority business. So I ask that you could please speak with Councilmember Landau regarding your specific concerns, so that you can ensure they are registered with her directly. Okay?
No problem.
All right, thank you.
Thank you all for your testimony. We're now going to public comment. We have 2 people for public comment. Andy Reid. coach for the Kansas City Chiefs. Is Andy here? How about Graham O'Neill? Graham O'Neill, do not see him. We have some written testimonies be added to the record. Beside, we added also the red line legislation. Written testimony from Ty Brown, the Office of Community Empowerment and Opportunity. And we also have PACDC testimony. Before we leave the hearing, we want to have a closing from Councilmember Landau.
Thank you so much. I'll be very brief. First, I wanted to thank all of my colleagues for holding this hearing, and in the Commerce Committee, and everybody who testified today. Just two final points that I wanted to say as, one, the government has decided as a policy reason that having free tax services, just like free legal services and sometimes free health care, is essential for us to have a thriving population and economy, and making sure that we're caring for folks who can't afford it. We cannot compare telling people about free legal services as telling them the burger down the street might be cheaper, which they'd still have to pay for, because we're not subsidizing burgers down the streets or fixing your car or getting a haircut. So just wanted to point that out. And the second thing I wanted to just say that I've been saying all week and remind you now, my door is open. We are still having these conversations. I'm open to all of the conversations, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Landau. Great work, and we know you're willing to keep the conversation going and working with Lowell and the people who testified. Seeing that there's no other questions or no one else to testify, that will we'll ask that close the hearing, and I want to thank all the panels of witnesses for their participation. We now go into a public meeting. We have a quorum present. To my left, we have Councilmember Gautier and Councilmember Richardson. To my right, Councilmember Jones and Councilmember Young. So there is a quorum. The chair recognizes Councilmember Jones for a motion on bill number 240019.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that bill number 240019 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading at our next session of council.
Second.
Chair notes for the record, Councilmember Young seconds the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that the bill number 240019 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move the rules of council be suspended to permit the first bill at this next session of council. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Chair recognizes Councilmember Jones on the motion for bill number 240087.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. I move that bill number 240087 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading at our next session of council.
Second.
Chair notes for the record that Councilmember Young seconds the motion. Has been moved and properly seconded that the bill number 240087 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to submit the first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Any no? Any nay? Ayes have it. The motion carries. That concludes the meeting. Business before the Committee of Commerce and Economic Development. Thank you all very much for your testimony and attendance.
Good job, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.